In this section, we're going to talk about the mediator pattern. If you have built any kind of desktop or mobile applications, you have definitely used the mediator pattern without being aware of it, or at least without really understanding how it works. So let's say we're going to build a dialog box for editing articles. So on the left, we have a list box with a list of articles. And on the right, we have a form for editing an article. Now, the Save button is initially disabled because we haven't selected an article. Now, when we select Article 1, this text box gets populated with the title of the article, and our button becomes enabled. If I remove the title, our button becomes disabled because we cannot have an article without a title. This is a pattern that you have seen in a lot of applications. We have a dialog box or a form with a bunch of input fields that need to collaborate. So let's go ahead and implement this in code to see what kind of problem we're going to face. All right, first let's add a new package called Mediator. Now, before we build a dialog box for editing articles, let's play the role of a developer who is designing a GUI framework for others to use. So in this framework, we're going to build reusable classes like textbox, listbox, and so on. So let's add a new class, UI control. This is going to be the base class for all user interface classes. Next, we add a listbox. This class should extend the UI control class. Now, every listbox should have a list of items, and it should also tell us what is the currently selected item. For this demo, let's not worry about the list of items. Let's only focus on the selected item. So I'm going to add a field of type string called selection. Now let's generate a getter and a setter for this field. Good. And as always, I'm going to move this up. Next, we add a text box class. This class should also extend the UI control class. Here we need a field called content. And let's generate a getter and a setter. Beautiful. And finally, let's add a button. This is also a UI control. Now here we need a field of type Boolean that tells us if the button is enabled or not. So is enabled. And finally, let's generate the getter and the setter. Beautiful. We're almost done. So this is our GUI framework. Now we're going to use this framework to build an application for editing articles. In our application, in our dialog box, these user interface objects need to talk to each other. For example, when we select an article in a list box, our text box should get populated with the title of the article, and the Save button should become enabled. So the list box on that dialog box needs to talk to a button and a text box. Similarly, when we clear the title of the article, the Save button should become disabled. So these objects need to talk to each other. They need to collaborate. Now we have a problem here. When using this framework, we do not have access to the source code of the listbox class. Even if you have access to the source code, we cannot change it because this is supposed to be a reusable listbox. We are not going to change the source code of this class and have it talk to a text box and a button because this collaboration, this interaction can vary from one dialog box to another. So this class should not know anything about a text box or a button or any other kind of user interface object. The mediator pattern is a great solution for this kind of problems, where we have a bunch of objects that need to talk to each other. We're going to talk about that next.